Good morning, everybody, or actually, good afternoon. My name is Lily Magis. Um, I'm with Communications here at the Department of Building Inspection. Thank you all for coming. This is the first workshop of the Building Safety Month, which is celebrated annually and internationally by other departments, building departments throughout the country. So thank you for being here with us, and I'll hand over the mic to Derek Chung, who will be presenting on the mandatory soft story program.
Good morning. My name is Derek Chung, and I work here at the Department of Building Inspection. I'll be doing this presentation on the mandatory soft story program with Robert Collins, who is from the Rent Board. So our agenda for today will be going over the program, steps to compliance, commonly asked questions, Rent Board questions, and contact information. Here are some program details. The ordinance for the mandatory soft story program passed in September of 2013, and it went into effect in September of 2014. Basically, the criteria for the soft story program is a wood frame building of 3 or more stories or 2 stories over a basement. Underfloor area that has any portion extending above grade, has 5 or more dwelling units, and built before 1978. Those are what we're looking for that should be recognized as soft story and should be needing the seismic upgrade. So based on the screening forms that we sent out to property owners, we recognized that there was about 5,000 properties that would be needing to do the soft story retrofits. We broke it down by different tiers so that not everyone have to do it at the same time. Right now, so there's 4 different tiers. Compliance tier 1 is for buildings that were educational use, assemblies, or maybe residential use, such as the senior citizen homes. Their deadlines to submit the permit just passed this year, and they will have 2 years to finish the work. So our next tier coming up right now will be tier 2. They are for buildings that are 15 and more units. They will be needing to submit the permit by September 15th of this year, and they also have 2 years to finish the work. Tier 3 is for units that are between 5 and 14, and they have until next year to submit the permit and 2 years afterwards to finish the work. And lastly, tier 4 is for buildings that has commercial units on the bottom or part of the liquefaction zone. They have the most time, so they get to turn in the application for the permit by September 15th, 2018, then 2 years to complete it after that. As you can see on this map, these are all the buildings that will be needing to do the soft story work. It's not specific to any neighborhoods, but right here, the blue dots are for tier 2, the yellow dots are for tier 3, and the red dots are for tier 4. If you're concerned and you want to know if your building is on the list, you can go to the website link at the bottom and search for your address by block and lot. You'll be able to find out what tier you belong into. Are you able to get the copy down? Okay. So how would you comply with the soft story program? First, you will work with a design professional to obtain plans and calculations prior to the permit application submittal. You can fill out the permit application form number 3/8, which is the pink form. You will need 2 sets of plans, a minimum 11 by 17 paper with 1/8 character height and minimum 1/8 scale. Structural upgrade plans and calculations by a licensed design professional. They have to be stamped and wet signature required on the first sheet. All others may be electronically stamped and signature. The disability access checklist if there's a ground floor commercial space, but not required for residential only buildings. If you do have commercial space on the bottom, you would need to file 2 separate permits to do the soft story, 1 for the commercial space and 1 for the residential units. Step 2, you would come here to the Department of Building Inspection at 1660 Mission Street to file the permit application. It is ideal to bring the design professional with you who drew up the plans when you come down here. So when you go through the permit process, if there are any questions with the plan checkers, they can adjust it directly to the design professional, saving you time on permit processing. Once the permit is approved, you will pay for the permit fees, and then you can move forward with your construction plans. Step 3, proceed with work accordingly once permit is issued. Notify tenants if you haven't already done so. Make sure to get all your inspections approved as required by code. Be mindful of inspection schedule as work progresses. Step 4, obtain the certificate of final completion and submit it to DBI staff to complete compliance. So once the work is done, you will need to take the copy of certificate of final completion and submit it to us over here on the first floor at window 8, or you can email it to us so that we can update our records and make sure that you wouldn't be getting more notices on completing work. Code enforcement. So failure to comply by the due dates may result in code enforcement proceedings, and this placard gets posted on your property. So I don't know, some of you may have seen this placard before, but this will be what being posted on your building if you have not complied. So because of this, we encourage property owners to start the process early to avoid code enforcement proceedings. Some commonly asked questions: the retrofit required in the seismic retrofit is required in the ground level to meet minimum seismic building code requirements. We have various financing options available. The city offers financing option with Alliance NRG. You can visit their website, which is www.alliancenrg.com, for more information. Commercial space questions can be directed to the mayor's office of small business. And if you have trouble finding design professional contractors, we have a list on our website at www.sfdbi.org/softstory. And we recently just posted up the list for the design professional contractors that attended our 2016 Earthquake Retrofit Fair. So that will be our most updated list. So right now I will hand the mic to Robert, who will help you with the rent board questions.
Thank you, Derek. I'm Robert Collins with the San Francisco Rent Board to answer questions about the other part of the process here, which is how do I raise a tenant's rent for after you've conducted the soft story, the mandatory seismic work. So the way in which this works is that in a rent-controlled unit, an owner gets an increase every year that's based on CPI. But when that owner does capital improvement work to the property, they are entitled to file a petition with the rent board to increase the rent above and beyond those normal increases. In the case of mandatory soft story retrofit work, that petition and that process allows an owner to capture, it has preferential terms for an owner. So an owner can pass through, in general terms, 100% of the cost of the capital improvement pass-through when that work is required by law. So the way in which that works is once the work is completed and paid for, the owner has 5 years to file a petition with the rent board. The petition, again, is called a capital improvement pass-through. It would be filed with the rent board. There's no filing fee for the petition. I'll cover that in a second. It has to be done within 5 years. It has to be done after the work is completed. And you've got to provide documentation such as canceled checks, contracts, and evidence. If you want the preferential treatment, you would want to also include evidence that it was done in compliance with the soft story retrofit ordinance. So you want the DBI paperwork that Derek talked about, you want to include that in your petition at the rent board. The requirements for certification, so what are they? Well, you're going to have to prove that it was work required under that ordinance. So you want to keep that really separate from other work and have clear documentation of that. There is no filing fee at the rent board, so are there any costs associated with it? Well, there's no specific filing fee. We do ask that you provide copies, postage of the petition for sending that petition out to tenants. But there is one cost that doesn't go to the rent board, and but you would have to pay if you don't get competitive bids or a time and materials breakdown. Then the law requires the rent board to hire an estimator to go estimate the value of the work that was done. So a key thing when you're thinking about doing this project is to go ahead and hire, to get a competitive bid if you can, from at least 2 contractors. And then you would be able to avoid the automatic estimator, which is, which you would pay for. I'll get to those in a second. The way in which you file a petition is to come to the rent board. We have a petition online that is a fillable PDF, and it helps you calculate a lot of the fields. So download that, fill that out, and then it has instructions on the number of copies that we need. Again, we need copies of canceled checks, contracts, and proof that the work was done pursuant to the seismic retrofit ordinance. One more piece of advice on that is get really good documentation from the contractor, because that's going to make the entire process go by a lot easier. If you have clear evidence and everything is allocated to the specific units, and you don't have extraneous work for something else that wasn't part of the seismic included in that contract. And one final point on that one is just that after filing the petition, the landlord is free to notice the tenant, if they so choose, for the increase pursuant to the petition that they filed. That increase for the capital improvement pass-through, the tenant has a choice of paying it or not paying it until the petition is decided. But if they chose not to pay it, it is due back retroactively. We are here to answer questions like that about the individual cases. We'll be giving you contact information later on. We encourage you to call our counseling line and ask those questions, but everything is in the forms. And so from the tenant side, what if a tenant can't afford the capital improvement pass-through? Well, as part of the soft story seismic retrofit ordinance, there was trading legislation that simplified the process for a tenant for filing for a capital improvement hardship application. And what this means is that tenants today can file that hardship application at any point after the petition is filed by the landlord, and and the process does not require a hearing. So if they come to our office and file that application because they can't afford to pay, we will look at that concurrently with the landlord's petition for pass-throughs and decide that. During that process, the tenant need not pay the capital improvement pass-through. What if you're a tenant and you are adversely affected by the work? Or for many people, it's can they take away the use of my garage, as an example, or other services that are generally provided in connection with the tenancy? The answer is that, part of the answer is that for disruptions that are just sort of more mundane, the noise and things like that, there's really no great answer. There's real limits on how much you could be compensated or have your rent reduced because of work that is an annoyance when the landlord is doing work doing construction work in the property. But when it comes to those services, so what's really happening out there is that a lot of these ground floor level spaces had garages, had storage spaces for the tenant, and those sometimes have to be removed in order to carry out the work and do the foundation work that's necessary. So in those cases, the landlord can sever those services with a 30-day notice, and then has to pay compensation for the services. And so there's a requirement that they give half the compensation with the notice, and then the other half afterwards. If there's a dispute about whether the compensation for the loss of the housing service is sufficient, tenants may file a petition with the rent board. So beyond that, I think the process is quite complex, but I want to give you just a primer. You come to the rent board to raise the rent for a pass-through for the capital improvements. If tenants have a specific problem with the kind of compensation they got for a loss of service, come to the rent board. We've got a counseling line, and Derek will introduce his. Our counseling line is available and staffed between 9 and noon and 1 and 4 p.m. every workday. It is at 415-252-4602. And we're happy to answer any questions that come up during this process. We also have a front counter that's just a drop-in front counter. It's open 8 to 5, Monday through Friday. We're not closed for lunch.
Yeah, hi. I'm involved quite a bit with both the small property owners and tenants and small businesses. A couple of things is, on the pass-through, if the work is already done, you already paid the contractor, do you still have to get another bid from somebody else on what the cost was? That's one question. Second one, what happens with the small business, commercial, a storefront that has to vacate while this is going on? Can they come back? Does the pass-through go to them? And also, can they get a credit on their rent while work is going on? For storefronts, I'm talking about.
Thank you for the question. So let's start with the commercial. The rent control law doesn't regulate commercial tenancies, so that's a question. I think in one of the previous slides, Derek had a referral. Mayor's office, a small business, for those kinds of questions. There's no rent control, so it's really a contractual issue and an issue between the parties. But they would be able to best advise you on that issue. And just in this time, I've forgotten the first part of your question. Sorry.
Oh, if a project's already complete, if a
Right.
project is already
Correct.
completed
Sorry, thank
and
you.
paid for.
Yes. Really the intention of the ordinance was that an owner would get 2 bids to be able to ascertain whether or not they are paying a fair price. So in a situation where they failed to get competitive bids, or the alternative is a time and materials breakdown. So you paid for time and the materials separately. If you didn't do that, then really what you would do is submit the petition with a check for the estimator, and we would send it out to the estimator. So the bids are there. The purpose of the ordinance was that the bids were there so that the decision-making process by the landlord took into account, a competitive bid to make sure that they weren't overpaying for the work. Does that? Are we going to Q&A? Any other questions? Yes.
Regarding the additional dwelling unit, I was wondering if a landlord can turn a garage into an additional dwelling unit, and the tenant would then lose the garage. Is that that's a planning issue, but are you familiar with that, and is that possible?
That issue presents some problems. The ordinance, as has been amended to take away the garage space, only currently allows the garage space to be taken away temporarily while the work is being done. So the second part of your question is much more difficult to answer, and that is whether then you could turn around and take away the garage on a permanent basis, and whether just cause would exist, because services like that require just cause to be severed from the tenancy. I can't answer the question, largely because that's nebulous. It's you would have to seek legal advice on and try it out. I haven't seen it be done, but generally, under what we call the Mercury amendments, housing services such as garages, parking spaces, storage spaces are part of the unit and require a just cause to be removed from the tenant's use. It's like part of the unit. And so there's no specific just cause that I can think of, but that's nebulous. Yeah, it's clear.
Just for those of you that don't know, there was legislation passed in April of last year, mid last year, and basically it allows you to add additional dwelling units when you're doing a voluntary, or in this case, mandatory soft story retrofit. And that's basically what this gentleman was referring to in terms of additional dwelling units, or ADUs. And it has to be within the building envelope. We do have a workshop on that next week as well, and there is information on our website. Same time, same place, and we can answer those questions. Planning will be here with us.
Which is the appropriate department to ask on most of the ADU stuff. Yeah, thanks.
Question?
Can owners perform this work?
Sorry, we'll need to give you the microphone.
With having to get the competitive bids and then the cost of materials, would owners be able to perform this work themselves if they have, you know, laborers that work for them or things like that? And would they submit time and material, or how does that work if an owner wants to perform the work themselves? And is that allowed?
As long as it's up to code and it has the rest of it, yes, an owner could do the work themselves or manage the project. And there's a specific rate that they could even bill for their own time, the uncompensated labor rate. So yes, the short answer is we would require documentation of that, but it is possible.
So it wouldn't go to your estimator then for the city. It wouldn't go to your city estimator then, right? If they at completion, because you wouldn't be going out and getting competitive bids. It would just be time and material. Yes.
It would not be a bad idea to get a competitive bid, just to get away from a number of issues that you could come up with in that situation.
Okay.
But
Any other questions that you guys might have?
Yeah, I'd like to ask Robert, when we pass back the expense to the tenants, is it distributed per unit evenly or by floor area?
so the law offers a number of ways of passing through the costs and of allocation of the costs, and that is one of the things that is decided at the hearing. But the owner should make the best case argument for what they think the fairest way to do it. So the law itself offers a variety of options, such as equal distribution, rents paid, or square footage, and the owner can argue what they think is the fairest way, or other methods. So as you can imagine, every property is very different in San Francisco, and so we do get to a lot of allocation issues, particularly when we have residential units, commercial units, all mixed in, different size units. But yeah, those are the things that we that are argued and decided at hearings.
Any other questions? All right, so just to let you guys know, our contact information here at the Department of Building Inspection, you can give us a call here at 415-558-6699. Or if you're down here, you can visit us at the first floor, window 8. And if you want to contact us by email, our email address is softstory@sfgov.org. You can sign up on your way out to receive email program notifications. And if you want to see more on our website, more updated information, you visit us at www.sfdbi.org/softstory. And thank you very much for coming.